We're back here with another review of Marvel's What If show, Season 1, Episode 3. Today we're talking about what if the world lost its mightiest heroes. An episode I didn't think we'd be getting this season, but we're talking about the assassination of the Avengers, essentially, is what the title of this episode basically should have been. A pretty wild episode. They packed quite a bit in the span of 30 minutes, and if it wasn't the shortest episode yet, it was definitely, at least in the top two, it was a pretty short episode. They captured a lot in just 30 minutes. We got a lot to talk about in a very short span of time here today. Doc, you're back. Chris Mueller on the Twitter machine, BR_Doctor. Chris, what's going on, man? We got a lot to talk about for this episode.
Oh, yeah. This is quite the interesting one.
Yeah, there's a lot to come out of this one. There's definitely stuff to discuss with a lot of potential possibilities. Phil, you're back as well, my man. Phil DL616 on the Twitter machine. Phil, what's going on, dude? You still recovering from that Punk debut last week in Rampage?
A little bit, but I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. If I was there, I know I would have thrown myself off the balcony, so it's probably fortunate I wasn't there, but I'm so jealous that you were there to see that in person. But anyway, we're talking Marvel here today. We got a very special guest, Cassidy Haynes from bodyslam.net. You're on the Twitter machine, man, at Casshole with 3 O's, that is. Cassidy, what's going on, dude? How are you?
What's up, guys? Speaking of that, I'm riding high off this wrestling stuff too, so we can. I'm feeling that wrestling love today, man. It's been a couple weeks, been pretty big couple weeks for me, and some scoops that I put out. So this is all panning out the way I'd hoped for.
I was gonna say it was just more than not even a month ago that you put out the Daniel Bryan news to AEW. Kind of getting a little confirmation last night from Punk on Dynamite. So probably the perfect time to be having you on the show here today.
Right, it's good timing. And I mean, Punk helped too. He's helped me twice in a week now because I had said. Also, the same week that I dropped that Bryan stuff, I was like, yeah, they're doing the United Center later this year as well, and I hadn't got the date yet at the time, but I got it a couple weeks after that, and I had said Punk was debuting in Chicago, so he's made me look good twice this week, so I'm all about it.
That's awesome, man. Well, you're very well connected, and of course, as it comes to this show, Chris was telling us earlier, and you were just discussing this before we went live here, with your cousin, you said, that writes for Marvel, or draws the covers and whatnot. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, he was a penciler. He was the main artist for Marvel when I was a kid. So in the late '80s, early '90s. So my childhood grew up with him being a huge part of Marvel's drawing base there. So he did when I was a kid. He did Alpha Flight. I know that was the first one I saw, which was like an X-Men style group, and then more popular was the Punisher Warzone series. He did a lot of that, and that's the main. Thing I knew him from as a kid is he would send me Punisher Warzone comics every week, and then they turned that into the movie. That was the second movie I think they did was the Warzone movie.
It was, yes, which I think is an underrated comic book movie.
I liked it better than the other one. I thought it was great.
Yeah,
but that series was the one that I remember as a kid. I think it was probably 92, 93-ish if I had to just guess off the top of my head, but.
If you guys ever get a chance, listen to the episode about Punisher Warzone of the How Did This Get Made podcast, because they have the director on there. And she's like this Oscar award-winning director who did some short film and then immediately got offered Punisher Warzone. And just the stories she tells about how in over her head she was and how she was trying to make it look just like the comic book is so funny. I'd highly recommend it.
I'll definitely check that out. I was a big fan of that movie, and like you said, it was very underappreciated and didn't get nearly any of the love and attention it should have gotten.
Yeah.
So, Cassidy, talk a little bit about, I mean, for every new person that we have here on the show, I kind of ask them about, their fandom when it comes to, the Marvel stuff and the comic book stuff and whatever. I mean, especially this year alone, we've had so many shows and movies come out, still a lot more to come. We had the No Way Home trailer drop the other day, so it's been a big week for both wrestling fans and Marvel fans. It's been massive. Talk a little bit about that as far as yourself specifically, with what you grew up on and what you're a fan of and stuff like that.
I grew up on all of it, like I said, because as a kid, I knew that, so he's like my dad's cousin. So it's when my dad's when my dad was kids, like all the kids his age, the cousins, like he was one of the older ones that drew comics. So I grew up knowing that, and he would send me stuff all the time, like I was saying too. So he would every once a month I would get just a box of comics from him, and most of them were stuff that he'd worked on or stuff that he thought I would like. But the local, it was a little newsstand in town. It was just a store that was nothing but magazines and comic books and stuff like that. Just a little bit of a convenience, and they don't have it anymore. It's a lost place. Like it was my favorite place in town, but there was hundreds and hundreds of comic books constantly, like all the new issues. You just go up there as a kid and you could walk through the store and just read, and he wouldn't kick you out for reading. That was the best part, the old man. So you could look and see which ones you wanted, and he let everybody hang out as a kid. So my days were nothing but looking at comic books. So I can't even tell you. Silver Surfer was one of my favorites, but to pinpoint what was my favorite and what got me into comics, I can't. There was just too much.
And now we got this What If show going on right now, and you're seeing a lot of those possibilities from the comics. We're seeing that on the show every week.
I have so many What If comics, so I was waiting for this show to start, and I have a stack, like a box, just a comic box of just What Ifs from when I was a kid. So yeah, this is right up my alley, honestly.
Well, we'll
that
start with you,
alternate universe stuff.
Well, going off of this episode, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this episode and what we've seen so far from the show? This is only the third episode, but this was the assassination of the Avengers episode. What if Earth lost its mightiest heroes? Your thoughts on the episode and the show so far? I
really like the show. I hadn't watched any of the episodes until last night to get ready for this. So I watched all 3 in a row, and I really like the way they're presenting it. So the guy that's doing the Watcher, that's the guy from Westworld, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I like everything the way they're presenting it so far, and I like that it's animated and not real action too. Mm-hmm. But which you get the actual voices of people. So I really like this. So far, so good for me. What about you guys?
Yeah, it's a cool concept. We talked about the last 2 episodes the last couple of weeks, and I don't know, of the 3 episodes so far, there's a lot of good ones. I enjoyed this one. I thought there was more they could have done with it. This felt to me like it should have been an hour episode, because it felt like the Avengers being killed off as quickly as they did. It was a little rushed, but I'm curious to see what you guys think. Phil, I'll start with you. What were your thoughts on the episode, and whether you thought it lived up to expectations, and anything else you thought about the episode?
I didn't have any real expectations for this episode, so I was just kind of along for the ride. The thing I noticed in this episode, I don't know if they've done it in the other episodes, but how they have the Watcher silhouette a lot in this episode.
Yeah, that was
cool. Yes.
Yeah, that was
awesome. Wanted to go back and look at the other ones because I was like, have they been doing that in every episode?
I watched them all in a row and I didn't notice that. And except for this one, I saw it a lot more because he was in the background of the city, just hanging out in the clouds and stuff. I didn't see it as much in the 2 because I watched, like I said, all 3 in a row. So I watched an hour and a half of it pretty much, or however long it took to do all of them. But yeah, I saw it a lot more in this 3rd episode.
Yeah, I thought it was a cool visual. And yeah, it makes me want to go back and look and see if he was in the background of some of the other episodes. But yeah, I think this is if anybody had gone and seen the movies and thought, man, Hank Pym doesn't get his due, Hank Pym is like the Punisher in this episode. It's like taking people out.
And we got Michael Douglas reprising the role too. I was not expecting that. I was pleasantly surprised because obviously they couldn't get Scarlett Johansson to do her character. Chris Hemsworth is doing Thor, right, on the show?
Yes, I believe he will.
So, yeah.
Okay.
When he makes a more proper appearance, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. He'll be in other episodes. I think he might be the only original Avenger, right, aside from Samuel Jackson. I mean, and Coulson too. I don't think anyone else reprises the roles. Definitely not Robert Downey Jr.
Well,
Chris Evans.
I mean, Jeremy Renner.
Was that Jeremy Renner? Really?
Yeah, that was Jeremy Renner.
Yeah, that's Jeremy Renner for sure.
Damn, it did not sound like him to me. I did not know that. Interesting.
I honestly didn't know it was Michael Douglas.
I
didn't know that wasn't Scarlett Johansson. Honestly, I thought they did whoever did Scarlett Johansson did a good job sounding like her enough to where I thought it was her, because I knew that was Michael Douglas. I knew that was Jeremy Renner, so honestly thought it was her.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you who it was. It was Lake Bell, who does Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. She's good.
Yeah, isn't that Mark Ruffalo though?
Mark Ruffalo. Absolutely. Yeah. That's what's so funny. It's like they took the Edward Norton movie and just stuck Ruffalo in there.
They should have brought back Norton for this episode. That would have been hilarious. I guess I
would have popped. Just name up the credits.
Oh, man, that would have been amazing. But, yeah, no, they went through all the original movies. Obviously, it was Nick Fury's big week with, we got shots from the first, Universal Hulk movie, from the first Thor movie, from Iron Man 2. They kind of went through all of them here while we were seeing them all get killed off. What were your thoughts in the episode, Chris?
I liked it. I kind of agree with you that they definitely would have had enough for an hour here, at least if they wanted to stretch things out. But I also like that they sort of just confirm, like, we knew the Hulk, Iron Man 2, and Thor all sort of took place near each other, but this confirms it's like the span of a week.
Yeah.
So it makes a little more sense in the context of some of the scenes in the movies that cross over with each other. But yeah, I just liked the fact that we got to see a lot of characters that, like Betty Ross, we haven't seen her since that movie. And I know it wasn't Liv Tyler doing the voice, but, you know, at least we got her back in the MCU finally in some way, shape, or form. We also got Coulson back, and he was loving Thor's hair. You know,
that was the best part of the episode, yeah.
So just wisecracking Clark Gregg. I love that guy.
Yeah, he was great. Yeah, no, it was interesting. I was curious. I was going to ask you if that was the same person who played Betty from the first Hulk movie, Liv Tyler, and it wasn't, like you said. But no, I thought that was interesting. And they go through a lot of different possibilities here. It's basically like the show's version of like a whodunit, with like you're wondering who's behind this whole thing, and you see with the arrow, you see him shoot Thor, Hawkeye, that is, and obviously it's not him. We find out it was Michael Douglas's character later on. So we find out it was Hank Pym. So that being said, did you guys know going into this episode, all right, I have a decent idea of who it could be? Were you shocked when you found out it was Hank Pym?
Yeah, you go first.
I think it was a good shocker. I think they left clues because it was attached to S.H.I.E.L.D., but I think once they gave like the Hope reveal, it's like, okay, yeah, it's probably Hank.
What about you, Chris?
I mean, the coolest thing about this is that they didn't list Douglas's name at the beginning of the credits.
Oh, okay.
Like at the beginning of the episode. So it was a genuine surprise. And I was a little shocked that, like, the other two episodes have focused really heavily on the exact moment things changed. And in this one, really the moment that things changed must have been Hope deciding to go work for S.H.I.E.L.D. instead of becoming a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't show that at all. And I was a little surprised because we literally have another Ant-Man movie being filmed right now. You think they would have gotten Evangeline Lilly for like one flashback scene.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, it made sense. I guess, like you said, they didn't do it at the very beginning because that would have given away the spoiler. But yeah, you're talking about like later on in the episode when they did the whole reveal that it was Hank Pym?
Yeah, like when he's, bitching Fury out in the graveyard, they could have flashed back to maybe the spot in Odessa where she gets killed, which, by the way, that may tie into Black Widow and Winter Soldier.
So was it her character? I thought it was his wife, Janet. Or no, was it Hope? I'm getting them confused.
Janet still died the same way here,
okay,
on another mission, but Hope never worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. in the movies. So here she's working for S.H.I.E.L.D. She dies on some mission, and that's what drives him over the edge. But they specifically mentioned that it was like 2 years ago in Odessa, and somebody online pointed out that matches up perfectly with where Black Widow said the Winter Soldier shot her.
Yes,
so
exactly.
it almost seems like Hope was sent on that mission instead, and she just wasn't as lucky.
Yeah, I caught that. I was interested to see because I was interested to see like where exactly she got killed or who she was killed by. I thought they would mention that, but like you said, other people did the research for me, and then, like you said, they had mentioned that it could have been Winter Soldier. So it's one of those what if things. Is this one of those episodes you think that we could see revisited in season 2 with like the fallout? Because Loki plays a pretty prominent role. We haven't talked about that yet, but they got Tom Hiddleston to play Loki. He was great in this episode, and he's basically ruling the world at this point. Could we see a continuation of this episode in season 2 with what if Loki actually took over Earth?
Seems like any of these episodes could be continued at some point. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And there's rumors that like they want to develop whole shows based off some of these stories. I think they're just waiting to see what the reactions are like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess it depends.
So,
what was that?
We'll get a Captain America, Captain Marvel series where it's the two of them just beating the shit out of Loki's army.
Yeah, the two captains. That'd be great. So, I mean, basically at the end, all of the original Avengers are killed off, obviously, except for Captain America, who's on his way back. I'll throw this one to you, Cassidy. What do you think, from a storyline standpoint, from the standpoint of the show, if the Avengers were actually killed off, let's say in the actual, I mean, this is the MCU, but live action, whatever, would Nick Fury have had a backup plan? Like, I know with DC, I'm not overly familiar with it, but like they had backup plans in case the Superman or Batman, whoever went rogue. Would he have had a backup plan if the Avengers got killed?
You have to think so, and because what the original Avengers team was a little different in the comics anyway, wasn't it? So you have to think that, like, in whatever universe we're in, that there's probably going to be a different formation planned of the team anyway. So I was expecting some. I was wondering who was actually. I was actually wondering who was going to be in the team, and if it was going to be the original team that's all broken up, or if it was going to have a different formation, like a pairing of all these people anyway. Because there wasn't. Who was some of the ones that were missing from the?
Ant-Man and the Wasp were technically founding members of the Avengers in the comics.
Mm-hmm. Stuff like that, yeah. So there was a bunch of was Iceman part of it at some point, and maybe one in the comics, or there was some other random people I think that showed up, and Vision was a big part of it. And
one of the X-Men who's Sunspot, he was an Avenger at some point.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. There was an X-Men, one of the other ones that I remember as a kid in some of the comics that came over that I was wondering if they would tie in. But yeah, I mean, there's got to be people that they could bring in this universe. He had backup planned, and yeah, I mean, I like this Nick Fury alternate thing they set up too, because like that was one of the things with Nick Fury is like he's such a big main character, and then they just kind of have him just in all these cameos all throughout the movies. So I was excited to see a lot more of him in this animated role, just because finally we can see more of the character that we never really got to.
Yeah, and then not only this, but I think he's setting up. Isn't the Secret Wars show going to be about his character coming up in a year or so or something? Isn't he like the focal point?
Is it Secret Invasion or Secret Wars?
Secret
I keep forgetting. Is it Secret Invasion?
Secret Wars was the Spider-Man comic, right?
I think it's Secret Invasion that's coming out. Phil, do you remember which one this is? The live action show?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Secret Invasion. Secret Invasion is around the Skrulls.
Yeah, so I think that's the one they're building for Fury. I believe that's supposed to come out like late next year or early the year after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. Depends on their schedule and when things get shifted and how COVID affects everything.
Yeah, no, for sure. And they got a million projects coming up. So, yeah, it's either probably late next year or early 2023. But, yeah, no, we'll be seeing a lot more of him there as well. What about you, Phil? What do you think about the whole Avengers thing? Because it's an interesting thing to think about because we didn't really see it in the movies at all discussed. Like, what if one of them went rogue and they would have to find someone to fill in the spot or whatever? What are your whole thoughts on that thing and how that was kind of explored a little bit in this episode?
Well, I like the way they handled it when he figured out that, remember, oh, he has to have the beeper. And then I think the way they did the reveal where he's like, welcome back, Captain, and it looks like he's talking to Captain America and Captain Marvel's behind him. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you still have other players on the board. I mean, presumably Wanda and Quicksilver are still out there. You still have Winter Soldier's still out there somewhere. Mm-hmm.
But
you've got other people that could join.
Experimented on, right? Because they never got a hold of Loki's scepter.
Well, yeah, that's true, actually.
Because Loki basically finishes his job of taking over the entire planet in a day.
Yeah, he never makes the deal with the Chitauri like he did before, because he never leaves Asgard and all the other stuff that happens.
That's a wild development at the end of the episode. It's just like flashes from Thursday to Friday, and he's just at the UN like, hey guys, I'm in charge.
Is it though? I felt like I was looking at the screen like, come on, Fury, you knew he was going to turn on you though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's why I think they have to go with the second episode in the second season as an extension from this one, because there's just so much more to explore there, especially with Loki in the role of a ruler, because we've always seen him in wrestling terms in chase mode for so long, so to see him in this role and actually succeed for once is going to be pretty cool if they actually go down that road, which I hope they do. But can we talk for a second the fact that, I mean, I thought this was pretty dark for a Disney show, and it probably would have been darker if it wasn't on Disney Plus, but the way that Hulk died with his heart being enlarged by Hank Pym and basically exploding in front of everyone, I mean, that was pretty fucking dark.
Yeah, it was actually. I was wondering how he was going to die too. I was like, man, how are they going to kill Hulk too during this? And so to see once he started to grow a little bit, I was like, oh, is he going to pop in front of everybody? And yeah, that was interesting. That was an interesting choice to kill him. I thought it was, like you said, dark. It was a dark way to go, but I liked it.
Yeah, no, it was cool. Yeah, no complaints. I was just surprised they went that route. And again, if they had more flexibility, if it wasn't on Disney Plus, if they weren't owned by Disney, they probably would have been darker, like in Suicide Squad, the most recent one, with some of the shit they did in that movie. I mean, it was crazy. But man, it was fucking wild. What about you guys? Any thoughts on the way that Hulk died?
I mean, that was wild. I think the fact that, it was a big green explosion is kind of why Disney was cool with it. Because if it had been blood and bones and tissue flying all over the place, they would have been like, guys, tone it down. But this was like a green water balloon popping, like you don't even see stuff on the ground once it's over. So it's almost like he just popped into dust.
Yeah.
So I thought it was done like in a good way where it's like it's kind of a violent image, but it's done in a very subdued fashion where it's easy to digest for like a little kid.
Yeah, Betty doesn't have like Hulk guts all over her fucking face or something like that.
Yeah, she's still traumatized as shit either way.
Yeah, yeah. It could have been a lot worse, but I thought it was well done. I thought it was a cool moment. There was something else I was going to bring up too, but yeah, no, I thought this was just a really good episode. Oh, one of the other things with Hank Pym, again, to kind of bring back a wrestling term here, wrestling term as far as this episode goes. I know Darren Cross was kind of going for something similar in that first Ant-Man movie, but do you guys think they actually underutilized Hank Pym's character in the MCU? Because he literally just killed off the Avengers in literally in the span of like 4 days. I mean, if they had someone take control of that tech in the movies, they could have done a lot more damage than they actually did.
I definitely think they went with a lot of ties to Hank Pym's like comic roots, like with him taking on the Yellow Jacket alias, because that's his alias. And I mean, it makes sense to have him do like full heel turn in that alias. And I mean, just having him at odds with the rest of the Avengers is just such a cool thing to do in the show as well, because he's at odds with them in the comics a lot. Yeah, I like what they did with him here. I like a lot of the tie-ins that they did to the movie. But I think one of the coolest tie-ins I saw was when Black Widow figured out that Bruce was in the closet because she saw his pizza delivery guy costume sitting on the desk.
Yeah, it was funny. Yeah, no, I'm very glad they got Mark Ruffalo here on for the show because I was not expecting that because, like you were saying earlier, Cassidy, like the way they have a lot of these people, like the people they bring in to reprise the roles that aren't the actual people, like Batista's not Drax on this show, but that guy sounded a lot like him in that last episode. Like he was very similar, just with the nuance of what he's saying and whatever. I thought he did a great job. A lot of these people are doing very good jobs, so that's been cool to see too. Yeah, that's pretty much the episode in a nutshell. It's pretty straightforward. Were there any Easter eggs that stood out to you, Chris, that you were like, oh wow, I'm surprised they included this, aside from the Watcher being shown in various shots? Any other Easter eggs that you thought were cool?
Not really. Like, at least I didn't notice a ton of just like overt Easter eggs beyond what we've mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Seemed like this episode had a lot of ground to cover, and it was probably just more focused on that.
Yeah. No, I thought they did a cool job with it. It didn't have as many Easter eggs as it did the first 2 episodes with a lot of the references and whatever, but it was still really cool with all the stuff they covered. And again, I think that they just barely scratched the surface of what they could do with this concept. But as we wind down here, any overall thoughts, any other things that we didn't talk about? Phil, I'll start with you. Anything else from this episode that you thought was cool that we haven't mentioned yet, or anything else on it?
I thought it was cool that they name dropped Pierce, and we got to see Grillo, not Grillo. That's his, like, real name. We got to see the Crossbone character again.
Mm-hmm. Was that the same actor, the same guy voicing it? Or no?
Yeah,
was okay. Yeah. That's awesome. Hopefully we get to see him again. What about you, Cass? Any other overall thoughts on the episode when it comes to episode 3 here?
I like this episode a lot, and I like that we, like you said, that the Watcher was more predominant. That's what we talked about. I thought that was kind of one of the things I noticed in this one is that he was maybe. I don't know if it was purposeful, like you said, that maybe we just didn't see him in the other episodes, but I felt like that we saw him more was that he was watching this for a reason more or something. That's the kind of thing that I liked about this one. I want one more with the Watcher now. I want a little bit more to see like what's his interest in all this and what, like, I'm interested in that part, and I hope they actually touch on a little bit more about, like, and just the stories that he's telling us or whatever, like, what's his purpose for telling us all these stories and what's going on with him, and that's a character I want a little bit more into, too, so
Yeah, I was
That's
gonna
kind of
say,
what I want.
as far as he goes, do you guys think that this could be leading somewhere where, I don't know if he's answering to someone ultimately, or if it just, I don't know. Do you think we might see this character pop up in the live action movies? Or, because I had seen speculation, maybe he was working with or had some sort of ties to Kang as far as the timeline is concerned and the multiverse, blah blah blah. Do you guys see the Watcher at all being incorporated into the live action movies, or is it just going to be exclusive to the show, you think?
I wouldn't be surprised if we got to see, like, I'd love it if it was actually Jeffrey Wright doing
Yeah,
the role.
exactly, yeah.
Line it up, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised with how kind of cosmic they're going with this. Like, we're really starting to explore more space-based characters, and the multiverse is opening up. So, yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all if the Watcher had something to do with it. And it also wouldn't surprise me if the final episode of this show was some sort of, like, I don't know how they would do it, but some sort of crossover with the previous episodes, all sort of leading to one thing somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Because, Marvel loves to do stuff like that, and they haven't released the synopsis for every single episode. I don't even know what next week's is supposed to be.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you guys. Any idea on what next week's could be? Is it the zombie episode, or I have no idea?
No clue.
Yeah, I think this was the last episode that people were allowed to review. So
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I was surprised even because we spoke about episode 2 last week on Friday, and even at that point, we didn't know what that episode was going to be about, and it was already out at that point. A lot of people had already seen it with the reviews and stuff. So it's interesting with this show compared to, I don't know, all the other shows they've done this year. They're not putting previews out for the episodes ahead of time. Like, we don't know until it drops on Disney Plus, I think, right?
Well, they had a couple of character posters released a day or two before this on their Twitter account, so I think they give little clues and stuff. But as far as now, like, with none of the screeners including anything beyond the first 3 episodes, we're starting to get into uncharted territory. So I'm very interested to see what they do, because we know about the zombies episode.
Yeah.
What were the other ones that they teased? I can't remember anything else specifically from that trailer.
I heard something of a party Thor. I don't know what that has to do with exactly.
Oh, yeah. There's some kind of episode with I don't know what that's about either.
Yeah.
They've got the Spider-Man Doctor Strange episode.
Oh, yeah. Wonder if that'll have any tie-in or relation to the movie.
You think you'd have to think so, right? I mean, they
would
plan
think,
everything
yeah.
out so well, and they've mapped everything as far as their phase releases and stuff that I think everything's tied into something. So I would probably get what's the other movie that's coming out? The
Shang-Chi.
Yeah, I think we might get something with him too. I think this season too, just because the way the movie's coming out, they are so good about tying in to their releases and products, and just make you want to watch everything that they do. That I think we'll probably get something with him this season, and wherever I was going with that, I lost my train of thought. But you know what I'm saying? They do such a good job with their marketing that I think everything is for a reason. So yeah, we'll probably get a Spider-Man. That's what it was, Spider-Man stuff.
Yeah.
Because they just released the trailer that we're going to get more in that, and I think that's just how they do it. I just don't see why they would not.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, right now, such a great time, too, like I was saying earlier. I mean, we literally just got the No Way Home trailer on Monday. Shang-Chi comes out a week and a half from today. It comes out next week. We plan on seeing it when we're in Chicago for All Out Weekend, which is going to be
by the way,
good.
I'm going to go now, guys. I was I was in the air. I was trying to figure it out because they haven't mediated yet. They still hadn't mediated me. I'm still being frozen out on media. But for the first time in 2 years, by the way, I haven't gotten any media yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they've hit me for every show since the initial launch of the company.
Yep.
I was mediated up until Fight for the Fallen when Tony went on the radio that day and talked shit about me. Haven't gotten any media approval since, but they did invite me to the virtual scrum, which I thought was weird. They denied me for Rampage last week for Friday. That was the first denial I've gotten, but they didn't deny me until Wednesday evening.
Oh.
Also, and then they're like, "Oh, here's the invite for the virtual scrum, by the way, too." So it's like, all right. So I guess I'm not blacklisted, but I definitely feel like I'm being punished by Uncle Tony. I'm grounded, but I'm gonna go. I'll be up there.
I've heard quite a few stories of different people getting turned down for both Rampage and All Out in Chicago. But it's like, it seems to be almost at random. Because, like, some people are like, yeah, I got approved for one, but not the other. So it's, I don't know.
They haven't approved or denied me for either of it yet, for any of it. they're like, I haven't gotten the approval email, the denial email. So I'm like, man, I'm on a different list right now. Yeah, they got me on a different list. They got me on the timeout list.
Did you buy it, or how are you?
I always, I mean, even on the non-media events, like Knox will get me tickets, or somebody will put me on the comp list. So I for pay-per-view, I won't be able to get it. I'm gonna have to buy a ticket if they don't media me for the pay-per-view. But I have no problem knowing that I'll be able to get into Rampage or Dynamite, just because, like, for the AEW friends and family, you know, because I know so many of the guys, like they were talking to me last night. Some of the boys in the back were texting me, like, when are you getting in next week? I'm like, man, I'm kind of up in the air on that, you know? And they're like, why? And I'm like, well, they haven't hit me with any of the media stuff. So, like, my trip's kind of in limbo, you know, and they're like, oh, don't worry about it. We can get you Rampage media for Rampage or Dynamite for sure, but I know I can't do the pay-per-view. And I'm like, well, no, that's fine. If you can do those two, it's worth the week. I'll figure something out for the pay-per-view worst case scenario. Yeah. But yeah, I'm going to be up there. So let's, if you know, keep me in the loop as far as that. If I'm up there and you guys are up there, let's try to do something for sure for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What were we thinking? We were going to go try and see Shang-Chi that day before, or were we thinking the day before?
You said originally, I thought you said Sunday, but I mean, Saturday's an option too. I think the only thing for me personally that Saturday that we might go to is the Fan Fest. I might want to check that out, but I'm not 100% sure. But either way, I mean, even that ends at like 2 p.m.
I'll be balling out in the game, in that basketball game Saturday, though, right? I might be busy putting, like, getting boards, guys. You don't know.
And then, Phil, didn't you say that you might have had a show on Saturday, too? There's another indie show happening.
GCW Saturday, which I'm going to do that one for sure. The Art of War Games is Saturday. That's the War Games match. And that's in the afternoon, I think, or in the evening, isn't it?
Were you going to that?
I might. I don't know yet. I think it's in the evening, though.
Is it in the evening? So, yeah, there's the day for... Yeah, I was going to do that one. I know Friday night's a late night GCW for, like, 3 cups stuffed, or whatever is late after Rampage, I think. An hour, like 11:30. So Rampage will be over, 10 o'clock that Central Time. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So then I think, so there's plenty of time and plenty of wrestling around there. We can all make it work. But yeah, I'll be up there now. Last week when everybody was asking me, I wasn't sure, so I couldn't tell everybody. But last night they were like, don't worry, we'll get you to Rampage and Dynamite. So I'm like, well, that makes it worth the effort, because if I can go, I mean, if I'm going to go up there to work, at least I can get two nights of AEW shows to get up there and cover and try to pull some stuff out of.
Nice. Well, it's going to be a great week. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, Pritzker just announced, our governor, because Phil and I are both in Illinois, Cassidy, just announced an indoor mask mandate again. So masks are going to be definitely on for all those shows.
I expected it anyway. You know what I mean? That's just...
They were kind of delaying getting it out of Cook County, it seemed like, where Chicago is, and it seems like now they're just like, you know what, we just need to put it across the whole state for a little while.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but yeah, no, I mean, I expected that going in, so it's not like I'm disappointed or anything. It's not, at the end of the day, it's, whatever, if it's safe or, God bless, we'll see. But it's going to be a fun week. Like I said, I got Shang-Chi coming up next week. We got What If going on right now. No Way Home trailer just came out. That's coming out December 17th. And then All Out next weekend for us wrestling fans. So if you're a fan of Marvel and you're a fan of wrestling right now, it's a great fucking time to be a fan of both. So there's a lot of shit to be talking about. I look forward to seeing you all guys in Chicago next week. Cassidy, thanks for joining us, man. You're on the Twitter machine, like I said earlier.
Anytime, guys.
At Casshole, you got 3 O's in your Twitter name. That's important. People can check you out there. Bodyslam.net, like I said earlier. People can check out your work there. You got the Brian Scoop about a month ago and all this other great stuff. Thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate it.
Man, my pleasure. Like I said, anytime you guys want to bullshit about some Marvel and comics, it's right up my alley. I can give me about 30. I'll do a little research to make sure I don't sound completely confused by what we're talking about. But I'm a big fan of. It's my childhood. It was Marvel comics and stuff. So let's go.
Awesome, man. Sounds good. And Phil, you're on the Twitter machine at PhilDL616. Chris, you're on Twitter at BR_Doctor. It's been great, guys. Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Perfect.
Yep.